the case and the reality of the situation and of our world is that there is really truly a hybrid format. And to navigate that is a very, very difficult, complex thing. It's not as easy as night and day.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Brett Gilliland. We have many of these episodes on a daily basis, and several of our team members do this, but I'm excited to host today our guest, Alexandra Schreckengost. Alexandra is the founder of Culture With Us. She has a background in corporate America, where she understands the importance of teams and organizations coming together, building trust, creating together, and the experiences needed to make that happen, to facilitate different people coming together and working as one are a fun thing to be tackling. And not only does she understand those dynamics and make them happen, but she does that in a virtual world, which is increasingly important. So I want to welcome Alexandra to the show and have her tell us a little bit more about Culture With Us. Welcome, Alexandra. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Brett. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about, really what the hybrid looks like and the evolution of the professional environment, because we saw a huge shift a few years ago and it's not changing. It's continually evolving in an upward manner, but there is kind of this conversation of what do we do in the office, out of the office, and how can we continue to drive business forward? And that's basically what we've been doing as an organization. So Culture With Us, we do virtual experiences and gift boxes for global corporations with distributed workforces. We work with these organizations truly on the one side to help with HR and employee retention. You want to make people feel special and heard, but you also want to understand what their perspective is and not have this groupthink mentality. And I think with a lot of businesses, you do see that they're hiring folks not just, outside of their city, let's say outside of New York or outside of Chicago, but you do see people hiring all over the world and being respectful of all of their cultures and the dynamics of how they work within their culture is huge. And then on the other side of our business, we help sales organizations. And really the bread and butter of that came from my husband, who works in tech. He's on the sales side. And, he and I, when we were in the corporate world, we traveled 50 to 60% of the time. We have little kids. They're 10 years old now, but at the time it's overwhelming. It's daunting to have to get on an airplane every single week, to exhaust yourself, to be gluttonous and not happy and overwhelmed, and also while trying to maintain a positive attitude and be in the corporate setting and maintain the culture of the organization that you're working with. And so something that we've been helping sales organizations with is you don't have to get on an airplane every single day to drive business. You can still manage your family. You can still manage your elderly parents, perhaps, or even your own personal balance. You can live somewhere else outside of a city, or you can live in a city, and you can still be able to have important business conversations, but you can't be everywhere at once, and you can't clone yourself. I think people wish that they could. And so we're able to provide really great professional, dynamic, interactive experiences and help drive that conversation so that business continues no matter where you are.
Love that. It's so cool what you're doing. I wish we could just
Yeah.
spend all of our time getting into that more. But the focus of this podcast is about your journey as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and some of the lessons that you've learned that might help others, as well as a current issue or challenge that you're wrestling with, that in the process of us talking together could be hopefully very valuable to you, but also to others who are listening. So let's with the backdrop of Culture With Us and all the cool things that you're doing there, let's talk about first one of the things that you've learned as you've made this journey from like scrappy, gritty founder entrepreneur to more capable business building leader, right? Like there's a transition there. Is there a key lesson there that you learned that might be helpful to other business owners?
For me, it's really understanding at your core what your values are and also embracing your mistakes. My biggest thing is I came from corporate America, as I had mentioned, and I was overseeing one department. I was head of communications and digital at a wine importer. And prior to that, I was working at, marketing and PR firms. And so the dynamic is just very different. So going into my entrepreneurial journey, the biggest learning curve for me was there were just so many big and small mistakes, and I could not let them define me or my business. There were setbacks of opportunities to strengthen our model. We were very scrappy at the beginning and just learning as we go. And some of the mistakes were, in fact, costly. And it was a matter of, going into what you and I were talking about before we jumped on was really planning not just short term goals, which I was doing in the immediate because things were being thrown at us as hot fire. I started the company out of our guest room. But really having long term goals in mind with a focus on, okay, what is the larger strategy here? And at the beginning, it was, COVID's happening, everything's locked down, we have to find a solution. And then it was, COVID's gone away, everyone's going back in person, virtual is never going to stay. And there is that's just not the case. The case and the reality of the situation and of our world is that there is really truly a hybrid format. And to navigate that is a very, very difficult, complex thing. It's not as easy as night and day. It's not as easy as, drink red wine versus white wine, which is the world I was in. And this is how we are going to market it. It's, how are we going to talk to people and engage folks to really truly help them with not only their internal culture, but also professionally, how are they going to engage with, clients and prospects all over the world? And it was, figuring out who to hire, how to hire them. Do I have a remote team because we work on a lot of remote focus? Do I have an in-person team? Do I have a mix of the two? What investments do I make on the onset? How can we automate things? And then really being able to manage that with folks while not reinventing the wheel completely, because you don't have the resources to do that. And so that was always a challenge for me. I have not grown more than I have in the last 4 years since starting my company.
Mm.
In the way I react to things, in how I connect with customers, in how I, manage my team. I was used to managing a team that actually I oddly managed my team remotely prior because I traveled 60% of the time, but
Mhm.
it was just a very different thing. And now it's forming a connection with people that I didn't get to meet for the first 2 years, but they worked at my business and
Right.
in my business and on my business. And how can I give them the tools, the resources, and the training? And so that was a very, very big thing for me. I had to really dive deep, and I had moments of frustration, of tears, of I don't know what I'm doing. And now I've gotten to a point of comfortability of I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm saving time, money, and energy. I am being impactful. I'm taking the time to chase my passion, which is really making all of these people truly happy, and being able to host these incredible events and experiences for people all over the world. I mean, I've never had such a larger network.
Mm.
I traveled before, but this has been amazing to understand. And I had, a client earlier that jumped on the phone with me and was giving me advice on shipping logistics because that is what they do for a living and that is their company. And while we ship a lot and we deal with logistics, that's not our expertise. I just got into this 4 years ago. So it's really being able to look past those mistakes and not be proud and say, well, I'm the best at everything and I don't know what's wrong. It's, hey, I really messed this up. And going to that incredible network and challenging yourself and also being vulnerable and saying, hey, I need help. What do I do here? How can I make this better? And I see that there's an opportunity in what we're providing, but what best supports you and your business? And that was a very good key learning for me and something that I push onto as many new entrepreneurs that I meet within my network. You have to be uncomfortable, and you're going to be uncomfortable initially, but you kind of stay uncomfortable and it's okay.
Yeah, I think that is great advice, especially for somebody coming out of, a corporate America type of setting to come into an entrepreneurial world, because I have that similar background. I worked for bigger companies, and it's sort of like a lot of those bigger companies might say, it's okay to make mistakes, right? We're going to learn from our
Yeah.
mistakes. But the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey is going from one mistake to the next. That, I mean, it's
Every day.
experience, like it's just way different. And so a lot of you, a lot of the business owners out there who are listening are like, yeah, that's what it's like from the beginning. But those who had a different type of work experience and then jumped into this business owner thing, they had a little bit of a wake up call, a reality check. It's like, yeah, making mistakes is part of it, and it's not to be embarrassed about. It's actually
Yes.
just it's part of. I think I see it as a badge of honor now. I'm like, oh, wow, I just last year I made a 5 figure. When you lose or you invest tens of thousands of dollars in a learning, that feels expensive. It can be like a gut punch. It'd be like, wow, that was unnecessary. I just wasted. It's like
Exactly.
I set fire to this money. But no, what I did was I gained real life experience that nobody else could have handed to me, right? Anyway, I
Right.
hear I hear you
And
saying
that's
that,
been a
like,
big thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's so good. Give people permission to live, to experience, to make a mistake. We're going to make the best decisions we can. We're going to move forward, and sometimes we're going to get it wrong, and it might be costly, and that's just part of it. It's okay. We move on, we do it again. I actually think that's what makes this country amazing, is that we have people who are willing, and not just people, an an infrastructure and a national culture that celebrates the crazies who go out and try stuff, right? And make it all happen. So anyway, thank you for that. Let's shift gears, Alexandra. Let's acknowledge that we still don't have everything figured out. And as you're trying to build your business, grow your team, do the thing that pursue the passion that you have and the vision that you have. What's something that you're wrestling with right now that might be of help to somebody else as we talk about it?
So one of my challenges is, because I did have a very remote forward organization and continue to, I do have team members all over the world. And in that sense, it's really great because they teach me something every day. I want to be respectful of all cultures, of inclusivity, of also how people do work in other countries, because we do live in our bubble here, as everyone does. And for me, my biggest challenge, in addition to resources, because we're a small, scrappy startup still, and we're a toddler. We're almost getting to kindergarten. We're 4 years. The other thing is really being able to train my team and be there for them on a consistent basis, because I don't get to see them every single day. And I do make an effort to, we have meetings weekly and daily, and we have our chats, and I bring the team together in person once a year, and we have since COVID kind of leveled out, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
in the simplest term. But how do you continue to grow a fully remote business that is servicing 79 countries? Because for us, we're shipping all over the world. We're working with Google and Amazon and these big monsters that are incredible multi-billion dollar companies that expect a caliber of a box that is very requires a lot of attention to detail. And so for me, that's also a huge thing that is continuing to challenge me, that I still haven't figured out. While the other things, like, lighting cash on fire for my first year and second year, to becoming a profitable business in the third year and excelling in fourth, now it's like, how do I get a team in place? And I do have an incredible team, and I call them a team of unicorns, but they're lean, and we're a small company. So how do I grow this business and the team members that are existing to become the managers of the next group of folks that are coming in. So that's definitely been a challenge on my end that I'm still figuring out. And I'd love your advice.
Okay. Alexandra, I heard a couple of things in there, so I want to narrow in, make sure that I'm understanding. I heard one thing around the team. The team is virtual, distributed time zones, geographies. Like we're spread out, and
Yeah,
how do I bring them together? Um, but I think more than like the team element, it was more the developing, training and developing team members to be who I need them to be as the business grows. Is that the issue you
correct.
want to focus on? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
what do you see as I don't know, what's at stake here? If you don't develop these team members, what does that mean or what does it not mean for your business?
It means a lack of productivity, honestly. It means a lack of collaboration, no accountability. I think there's a few within our organization that, I have one that works here with me. So he's incredibly proactive in asking questions. He's seeing me live. I have another who's fully remote. She's incredible in that she started with me. She started a week after. So she knows the
Mm,
business inside out. Others aren't always as proactive, and it's my fault. I really do. I care a lot and I want them to manage and own it. And how do you give people that autonomy and I guess the resources that they need to learn that next step of, hey, I've been doing this for so long. I'm so comfortable. I can train 10 other people and now we can grow our business more.
mm. What kind of aspirations do you have for the growth of your business in like the simplest terms possible? Like, are you trying to, do you want to double? Do you want to triple? Do you want to 10x? What is in the future for Culture With Us?
So for me, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with spinal cord damage, and I was in the middle of a huge growth year revenue wise, but kind of making those big mistakes on what do I spend the money on to invest in. And I had, some team members here that were like, oh, well, we need these resources and we need these. And I was kind of just all over the place. And now that I've reeled it back in, my goal is to really kind of three times the revenue this year and next year with the opportunity to merge with an organization that complements what we do.
Mm,
We do a lot of resources and concierge for these global corporations. And being able to bring together or own it on our own and have the experiences of retreats and opportunity to again continue that dynamic of professional growth and conversation is huge for us. So 10x, yes, I'm taking it one day at a time because now I'm in my recovery. I do rehabilitation every week, actually on a daily basis at Kessler, and so now that their CEO is feeling better, is energized again, I'm restructured to one, make sure that the growth is there and it's continuing to take place in a beautiful way every year. Last year, I just had a breathing moment where, and I kept on asking other entrepreneurs, like, when do you breathe? And they were like, that one moment where everything just happens and it's coming together really nicely. And that happened last year for me. And it's continuing this year. And hopefully we charge forward in that way. I really do see a cool evolution of what's happening in the workspace. And it's been fun. And I do see a lot of growth to where we could get to that 10x.
okay, so but you want to triple. That sounds like you'd like to triple again after that. It's happening quickly, and so what's at
It
stake
is.
if you don't develop these leaders that are spread out right there in other places. If you don't, or you don't have to call them even leaders. If you don't develop the team to be able to level up to the next level of business, then is it fair to say that your growth plans can't happen in the time frame that you'd like.
Correct. Because you have to think, like I mentioned, we have customers that are heavy hitters. They're huge global corporations, and their expectations, as they should be, are we need this at this time. And having a team that can't grow with me. And right now we do. I have that team that's growing with me, but how do we now add more people into the fold to be able to accommodate these larger companies and really own all of their business?
Yeah.
And that's been the biggest thing because we own bits and pieces here and it's great. And they speak highly of us, but fulfilling for maybe 5,000 versus 30, 40, 50,000 people is a very big difference and a lot to take on for a full-time staff of 6.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so your team's gonna have to grow, and in order for all of this to hold together, I think about like a rocket ship moving and how much turbulence or friction moving through that atmosphere, and things are kinda shaking, and they would shake apart completely if you didn't have this core group of people holding it all together and leveling up to help everybody else coming in keep this thing
Right.
going forward, right? So I'm with you. The stakes are they feel high. It's like, oh, wow, if we're really going to move that fast, the people I have right now are going to be key to making that happen. So how do I
Right.
invest in them, bring them along, grow them? So um, I hate to slow down a little bit, but it'll be in the spirit of speeding up, I hope. So, and to make the point for everybody listening, um, if you're just listening and you're not seeing our wonderful visual here today on this video, there's this funny looking shirt wall behind me. I put together a board and pinned up a bunch of shirts from a business that I was part of that grew fairly quickly. We were at seven figures, and when I joined, and my expertise is this development work to go from seven figures to beyond, right? So I joined that company full time after starting as a consultant there, and it was exciting and it was aligned with my vision and my passion. And so I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I was like the right hand to the CEO there. We went from seven figures to 100 million in the 10 years that I was there. So it wasn't like,
Amazing.
one of these 3-year kind of shoot up situations. But during that time, there were several stages that we went through, right? From 3 to 10 million is a stage. Actually, on the ones and threes of revenue, every time you triple, there's a new thing you got to figure out. So, million to 3 million, that's a
Exactly.
stage. 3 million to 10 million, 10 to 30, 30 to 100. And every stage had this little, like, we would grow to it and then we'd plateau a little bit. And sometimes a lot we would plateau. And it was like,
Yep.
oh, wow, we have to shift gears. We have to figure out how to move through that. And the reason I'm telling this story is that the punchline is in direct support to what you just said. So the punchline is this. In our learning from seven figures to 100 million, and we hired a couple hundred people in 1 year. Like, it was ridiculous how fast some of this
Wow.
happened. Um, I would have done two things differently looking back on that. Okay. The lessons that I learned is we spent a lot of money and some of it burned a lot of money in learning these lessons. Here are the two lessons. One is I would have protected the front door a little better with my life. Like, we knew that. We already knew that. We were very intentional with our culture. If I'm not an intentional culture guy, I'm no one. Like, that defines who I am. And even knowing that, by the time we delegated that to others so that we could focus on other things, it just we lost some of that. And there were people who were coming in who did not belong there. Not all of them, but there were enough
Right.
of them that it caused us some hiccups. And you didn't bring that up. And so that's one lesson. But the other lesson is exactly what you brought up. The other lesson was we did not develop leaders fast enough. When we needed leadership, when we needed the next level of people, we had to go outside for them. And that was another cultural, like taking a jackhammer to our foundation. It was so disruptive, so hard to assimilate all of the next level leaders from the outside. We should have been growing leaders faster within our own team. And so, Alexandra, you put the nail right, like you're right on the thing that matters. When you're growing fast, you must preserve your culture, and you must do it in part by developing some, if not most, of your leaders from within. So I just needed to underscore the importance of the topic that you raised. Now let's talk about how you can make this happen, because it's here, it's now, right? It's like clear and present. If we're going to do what I want to do, I have to develop these people. So one of the things that I would do is I would create a you don't have to call it a leadership model, but that's the concept, okay? So what this
Okay.
is just like you have a set of values for your business. You hire to these values, you lead to these values, you fire to these values. These are the non-negotiables, right? We can be different in lots of ways, but we have to be the same on this set of values, right? And I know with
Yeah.
a company called Culture with us that you get all of this, right? Like this is core. So, just like there's a set of values for every person that walks into this building or into this company, because we're virtual, um, there is a set of leadership standards that we hire, lead, and fire leaders to. And we have a leadership model at Elite Entrepreneurs. I don't mind sharing it in case it's helpful. Our leadership model has four elements to it. The first won't be a surprise if you're, especially if you're a Jim Collins fan. He says the number one responsibility of every leader is to set the vision. That's the number one responsibility.
Yes.
So the number one, the core concept of our leadership model is set the vision. There has to be clarity with every member of the team about why we exist, how we operate with one another, and where we're going right now. Like, what's the destination we're all aligned to right now? That is vision clarity. And that's the number one responsibility. The second element of our leadership model is to build the team. Like, you
Yeah.
can't just have a vision, you got to have the team around. And we're talking about that today. Like, how do I build the team? You're doing that. The third one is get the resources. We can't have vision and team without enough fuel or runway or whatever the analogy is that you need to like make this reality. So that's like the work of the leadership model, and the way of being. We define it as care in the center, but think about it as your um, care for people and the cause, right? Like it's values alignment completely. It's purpose alignment. So they're in complete alignment with the vision, and they're interested in the people that they lead, and they're doing everything they can to help those people be the best version of themselves. So there's lots of definitions of what good leadership looks like out in the world. That happens to be ours. But Alexandra, for you to level up these people, you have to spend a little bit of time thinking about, well, what is good leadership at Culture with us? What does it look like? How would it be recognizable? How would other team members look and see somebody else exhibiting that leadership? So it's beyond the core values. It certainly comes from that place, but then there's a next level for leaders. So and you may already have some of that clarity, but I have to share all of that so that people listening can benefit from that as well. And then what I would do is set up in my leadership cadence with each of my direct reports a specific plan of what are they needing to work on in alignment with our leadership model, or our way of thinking about what good leadership looks like. What do they need to look what are the experiences they need to be having? What attributes or qualities they need to be practicing, and how can we have an ongoing dialogue about that? So I would leverage what I hope are two, I guess, meeting rhythms in your own business. One
Yep.
is a weekly one-on-one, a weekly touch base. And I would use that to check in on their responsibilities. Like, are they delivering their role, the thing we pay them for every pay period? And I would check in with them on their growth. Like, what is the thing that they're working on right now? How can I be coaching, mentoring, providing resources for them to do that? And the other mechanism would be the more formal version of that, which is I would strongly recommend a quarterly review process. And that's not just to review how they did the last quarter, which is essential. I want to look back and say, hey, we said the quarter was going to be this from a performance standpoint. How did we do with that? Also, we have a set of values here that we live by. How are you doing against those values? Right? So the look back would be part performance, part culture, are they in alignment? And the other part of it is, how did we do with the development that we said we were going to do during this past quarter?
Right.
And then we're going to look forward and do the same thing. Like, what plans do we need to make for performance? What adjustments, if any, around the culture? And then what is the development that we're working on this quarter? Now, if you want like specific resources for developing leaders, um, I already said I'm a Jim Collins fan indirectly. He's got just great business culture stuff in general, so I would turn to that. Patrick Lencioni is another one of my favorites, and I like to give new leaders the five dysfunctions of a team, and have them
Okay.
think about that. Um, I also really like a book called The Dream Manager, which may be
Okay.
a little off the path of some of these other like mainstream concepts. Um, I think there's some good things around behavior and performance out there. My favorite one is called, the group used to be called Vital Smarts. I think that they've renamed themselves, but their work is called Influencer, is the
Okay.
organization change model, and the behavior change associated with, or individual behavior change model they have is called, or book is called Change Anything. Anyway, so
Okay.
I would be going out to known valuable resources and having them read books. Some of my best growers over the years were like, we turned them into voracious readers, and or listeners. Um, so I would have them be consuming things that I think fit with my way of viewing leadership. So that leadership model, there's got to be resources that align to that, and they're reading, they're listening. You guys are talking about these concepts in your team meetings, or in your, maybe there's a special monthly leadership development thing that you guys start doing. So there's got to be a standard for what good leadership looks like for you to develop people to it. You've got to use either current or new rhythms, to
Yep.
be reviewing that with them on a regular basis. And then we're going to be building in leadership development, um, I guess, leadership development specific motions or meetings into our overall rhythm. So I would do a monthly topic of some sort. I might even have one of my team members prepare it. Like, I'll say, here's what I have in mind. I'd like you to go research that, put that together, share it with the team. Maybe there's a book that everybody reads in advance, but we're going through the process of making that happen. Oh, one last thing, Alexandra. You said you have kids that are they're 10 now. You shared on the podcast, or about to be 10. Just like you show your kids how to do something for this first time, you don't just say, hey, go do a batch of laundry. You say, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to do a batch of laundry. And you explain, like, you're the one doing it, but they're right there with you, and you teach them, you show them, you model for them while they shadow you. And then the next time, you are right there with them, and you're shadowing them as they do what you showed them to do. And if you need to shadow them again the next time, then you do it again until they get to a level like, okay, they got this. And so, while it feels very inefficient, especially when you're doing so many things and you're growing so fast, you have to figure out how to have somebody with you almost at all times when you're doing leadership things, right? Like, who can shadow
Absolutely.
me doing this leadership thing? And you're like, well, they're all in the meeting with me, that they're all seeing me do it. That's different from, I'm taking you aside and saying, I'm about to lead a meeting. Here's how I prepare for the meeting. Watch how I like do these intentional things during the meeting, and here's what I have to do after the meeting. I want you to, like, I'm going to have you shadow me for this meeting so that you learn how to do it, and then the next time I'm going to have you do it. So just last week we had our quarterly planning meeting. I had one of my team members come and watch me facilitate a quarterly planning session with another company so that she could watch how I did that. And then we talked about
And
it.
how you prepared for it.
Yeah, talk about it ahead of time, watch me do it, talk about it after, right? And then last week I had her lead ours, and she led the preparation for it. Then she facilitated, and then we talked about it afterwards. So a lot of shadowing. What an exciting time in your business, Alexandra. I know I just dumped on you so much stuff. You could probably tell I'm a little bit passionate about these topics. And the reason
I
I
love
hit you
it.
with, yeah, good, thank you. The reason that I hit it with so much volume of stuff, if not volume in my voice, is because I'm trying to give to a lot of people at once, right? Like there's something in here that will help you where you're at, wherever you're at. So, Alexandra, thank you. You've been a tremendous guest in bringing up something that was helpful for you, and then something that you're dealing with. Do you have any clarifying questions or anything as we wrap up? Um, that because I don't want to just dump on you and then not be helpful. So, is there anything else that I can help you with?
No, I mean, I think for me, that's hugely impactful is finding a way to connect with my team in a way that trains them. During the first 2 years of the business, the struggle really was, and it continues to be, but it's getting better, as I mentioned, because I have core team members that have been with us and are dedicated. But initially, it was, finding people that weren't just doers, finding people that really wanted to learn, that really wanted leadership, and not say, oh, I've led a team before, so I don't need your advice,
Mm,
or I don't need to learn from you, or let me look at your P&L and I'll come up with the vision. It's no, let's, and I hear that so much from so many entrepreneurs. They'll have, folks that aren't fully invested in their business, and aren't part of the team. And I'm really excited now that I have a group of people that are part of the team, that are family, that are helping to transform how we manage the day to day of the business. And it's really taking the time to have them shadow, creatively, obviously, because we're all remote, and then also having those quarterly planning meetings and the in person, which we're having in August, to really reconnect with them. So that's a huge thing for me, and I hope if anyone else, whoever else is listening that's going through this, not only learned from you, but knows that they're not alone, and that I'm also going through it. So many other entrepreneurs that I've spoken to are going through this. And it's time that we pave the way and have proper planning and market research, but also kind of put in the effort, to train and to really drive this new way of working forward.
yeah. Who knew that growing a business would be so fun and exciting, right? And that we would burn some
Yeah,
dollars.
exactly.
We would burn some dollars along the way. Anyway, Alexander, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on our show today. If people want to learn more
Thank
about
you.
culture with us or connect with you on social, how would they do that?
So LinkedIn, just look up Alexandra Schreckengost. I know it's a mouthful. Instagram, Alex Schreck. You can also not only follow what we're selling and doing for Culture With Us, but also follow my family and our adventures. And then you can go to culturewithus.com to explore what we're doing for B2B.
Very good. Awesome. Okay, I
Thank
hope
you.
that all of you out there listening go check out Culture with us and connect with Alexandra on social. We're going to keep bringing amazing guests, and what makes them so amazing is not just the people that they are, which that each of them is special, but the things that they're going through, wrestling with, sharing with all of us. These are the real lessons from the real people doing the real work. So thank you all for listening, and join us again for another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.